Thanks. Give it up for Jay. If you saw a map, could you point out where Wales was on a map? Okay. If you saw a map, could you point out where Aberystwyth, Wales is? Could you say it? That's the other one. The guy we're going to bring up next is our, for all practical purposes, our founder. He started doing this, I believe it was maybe October of 2007, just for fun. And I think, I don't know, he inspired me. And he contacted me, reached out to me and said, hey, let's do this thing. And here he is, he's here today. First time in Vegas, third time in the States. Yeah, third time. Get your ass up here, Jay. Give it up for Jonathan.
So what's this thing about the sheep? No, what's this thing about the sheep? Hold on. Oh. Thank you very much. Right. Well, first of all, when I actually started DJing, it's quite surreal actually, because my first ever, I suppose, concept of music is my mum being a piano teacher, and then I can remember this time years and years ago. I think it's about 1974, 75, and Sunday school. Okay, and you know, we're in this Sunday school, and they said we want some music for the Sunday school, so I nicked my sister's turntable. You know, I don't know if you've seen them. It's like you put the record on, the speakers here, and you know, you've got to turn it up to volume number 20 just so you can hear the damn thing, you know? So I took this along and I took a whole bunch of my sister's records. And anyone out there heard of Ian during the Blockheads? Yes. Okay. Are you familiar with the track called Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick? Yes. Okay. Now, how can I put it? When I first got that track, I never listened to the A side, I listened to the B side, and I thought that was brilliant. So you imagine this guy of like, I don't know, about 5 or 6, 7, something like that, and I sort of played a few tracks, and then I just waited, and I put the B side on, and it's entitled Ain't Half Been Some Clever Bastards. And I was asked to leave, which is a bit of a shame. So that was almost my first time of being a DJ. And then when I was in secondary school, you know, I always used to dabble on sort of cassettes, etc. And the sixth formers, they always used to ask me to come and do the disco. And it was quite bizarre because I just had a hi-fi. And I think the first main reason they wanted me to do it, because they couldn't understand how quick I was taking a cassette out and putting another one in. Well, they didn't realise I spent 3 hours getting them all perfectly ready, so I could just, whereas they were that pissed, well, they weren't allowed to be because they're in school, they would just like fast forward and rewind, and then eventually they could hear a track. I'd get them all ready, set up. And then early in the early 80s, I remember listening to the, you know, the DMC mixes. They started early 80s. And I can remember one of my first mixes I heard, it was Let's Dance. And then the other track, Waiting for a Train. Let's Dance, do you remember those two? Flash in the Pan, Waiting for a Train, and Let's Dance, David Bowie, yeah. And I can remember hearing this mix, and I remember it was the summer, and I'm by the sea, and I thought, wow, that is so cool, I want to be a part of that. And then, again, that same year, when I went to school, I had this guy from, I think he was Switzerland, and he brought these cassettes back, Master Mix. And I listened to these cassettes, and I thought, wow, this is fantastic. So then what happened, I think it was the year after, my mum bought me this twin cassette player. And I think I'd had it about 2 weeks, and I pulled it apart, and I got small pop controls, and I put pitch controls on the cassette player. So, you know, you couldn't cue or anything like that, but I was able to mix using those guys. And then I found, you know, I'd known about Technics, etc., but you couldn't afford them. So then I eventually got a double twin turntable with belt drives, and if anyone's familiar with those guys, you know, you move the pitch control. They used to be little dials like this, and you could literally speed it up. You could go in the kitchen, make a cup of tea, come back, and it'd be like this, you know. So you had to concentrate on the pitch control. But because the deck was so bouncy, you couldn't touch it. So that's where I suppose I learned how to do mixing and stuff like that. So of course then, you know, family and friends get to know what you're doing, and eventually then I started doing, you know, family parties, etc. But right, that's a tiny bit of history. The main thing about, I suppose, today and now is talking about what DJing is like in Wales. Well, I take my hat off to A1 Party DJs because I know exactly where it's coming from. Anyone here, what do you think the going rate is in Wales? What do you think?
2 sheep and a leak.
You're not far wrong, actually. Well, I have people phone me up and they say, you know, right, we'd like to book you. How much do you charge? And I say £180, which is probably about the same that you charge. It's dollars, you know, because I think the dollar is, what, 140, so can anyone work that out? Because my maths is crap.